How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your June 2019 horoscope for Virgo, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. We're starting June off with the new moon in Gemini happening on June 3rd, and this is happening in your 10th house. The new moon is when you have both of the luminaries in the same sign, and it's kind of giving you an opportunity to focus on one area of your life, focus on one area of your chart, bring you some level ground, like some level-headed energy, maybe reset some intentions there. This is the new moon in Gemini, focused on where do we need to reestablish communication, understanding, connection between people. And this is happening in your 10th house of your career, your public vocation, what you're kind of doing with your life, what the public sees. So the 10th house is very much like, you can't hide anything in the 10th house. It's fucking there for everyone to see. And so this new moon is going to be a really good time to, again, reestablish connection, reestablish understanding, and maybe start learning something new. I don't want to say communicate something new. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But this new moon in the 10th house is kind of like, what are you doing within your career, and where do you need to resettle the energy? Not necessarily reset intentions, but where do you need to kind of have a clearer scope of things? However, as we move to the next day on June 4th, we're going to be having Mercury enter Cancer. Now, Mercury is the planet of, as you guys should know, since you're Virgo, suns or risings, Mercury is the planet of communication, our mindset, the way that we think and the way that we vocalize our thoughts. And as Mercury goes into the sign of Cancer, which is about our emotions, it's about trusting, it's about empathizing, nurturing, defending and protecting what's important and and the things that are necessary, the things that are of necessity. And as Mercury enters Cancer, it's going into your 11th house of friendships, of bigger groups of people and alliances and networks. And Mercury, being this planet of communication in the sign of Cancer, is kind of like saying the things that need to be said, focusing on the necessary, protecting, being more connected, and having more empathy and having more emotion, established within your line of communication. And as this goes into your 11th house of friendships, of bigger groups of people, this is kind of focusing on what what do you need to communicate, what needs to be expressed in those terms. Also, this is the 11th house, and astrology, just like life, it's not always about you. So this could definitely be certain friends reaching out and addressing certain situations or addressing needs, or maybe you have to help them some way or another. But we'll be talking more about that as we move on. However, moving forward, on June 8th, we're going to be having Venus enter Gemini. And this is super exciting, and this is super positive because Venus, the benefic planet of love, money, relationships, she's connecting you to all the things that you like. She wants you to indulge in nice things and have great sex. Venus going into your 10th house. Venus is going into Gemini. Let me talk about that first. Venus in Gemini is looking for mental stimulation. She's looking for new things that are going to, kind of pique her interest. Where can Venus be? Where can Venus spread all of her value? Where can Venus find all of the value? And as Venus is in your 10th house of your career and public vocation, I could definitely say that the terms of your work, the terms of your career and what you're doing are going to be a lot more positive. However, what I would suggest is really looking at what opportunities are presenting themselves to you, and what, maybe you heard something through someone, because Venus in Gemini is very, very social. There may be some new opportunities arising, and there may be some new directions that you can go in. While your career is going to be, for the most part, positive during this time, it's just, I want you guys to be aware of everything that's happening around it, because there's definitely going to be some new information coming in, good information coming in, and, I don't want to say rely on that stuff, but listen to it and go with it. As we move forward, on June 12th, this is when we're going to have Mars conjoin the North Node and oppose Saturn, and this is pretty rough. Mars, we talked a lot about Mars in Cancer last month and during my May horoscopes. Mars is in its fall in Cancer. It can't do as much. And when you have Mars, this planet that's hot and dry and frustrating, in your 11th house of friendships and networks, this could be a difficult area for you right now. And as the North Node is also here in Cancer, this is like Rahu. This is what we're hungry for, what we're wanting to consume, the direction we're wanting to go in. This is focusing on what our needs are within friendships, what our needs are within, groups of people. And Mars conjoining the North Node is kind of like looking at like, hey, I need to take direction in this place, whether that's severing yourself from a certain group of people or friendships, or maybe that's connecting yourself to people that are going to be more, trusting of you, or more, relatable, or more, empathizing with you. Mars is also opposing Saturn, and Saturn's in your fifth house right now in Capricorn, where there could be a lot of limitations and a lot of, power struggles, since it's conjoined the South Node, conjoining Pluto, retrograde in its home sign. It's in your fifth house of love and romance and creativity, and the fifth house is an extension of the first house. However, as Mars is opposing Saturn here, this is kind of like, you know that you don't really have too much full control over exactly the things that you would rather be doing, or the things that you'd want to be doing right now. Mars conjoining the North Node in Cancer in 11th house is taking action that's necessary, that you need to take regardless of what power you have over it. Now, moving forward 3 days later, on June 15th, that's when we're going to have Mercury conjoin the North Node and also oppose Saturn. And Mercury it's kind of like, Mars going over the North Node, then Mercury is kind of like shoot first, ask questions later. I've said that analogy in like all of my horoscopes. Mercury being on top of the North Node is having a lot more clear image and a lot better visual understanding, a lot more better and mental understanding of those needs that need to be met, the communication, the words that need to be said within that group of people, within your friends, or wherever, Cancer, the moon rules Cancer, so wherever the moon's at in your chart, more of that kind of focus, or those topics. So as Mercury conjoins the North Node and opposes Saturn, it's kind of like a tough conversation to have, but it's what needs to be said and it's what needs to be addressed. Now, also on June 15th, we're going to be having the full moon in Sagittarius, and this is happening in your fourth house. And of course, once we have Mars and Mercury go over the North Node and oppose Saturn, it's kind of like, fuck, we kind of have to, we can't do what we want. We got to focus on what we need to do right now. And this full moon in Sagittarius, a new moon is focusing on one area of your chart. A full moon is lighting up an axis and a dynamic in your chart. Full moons light up what we don't always see because it lights up the dark, lights up the nighttime. And as full moon is happening in Sagittarius, the sign of adventure and optimism and growth and expansion, it'll also be pretty close to Jupiter. This is kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? This is also happening in your fourth house of your home, your family life, your parents, where you're living, like your actual physical home, your living situation, where you center yourself. And I believe that this full moon in Sagittarius is giving you an opportunity to emotionally look at where you want to grow into when it comes to where do you want to center yourself? Where do you want to live? Where do you live right now? And what do you want to grow into there? And I do think that that's going to give, that's some positive look at, that's some positive attention towards your fourth house stuff, especially as Jupiter's been going through there, and now retrograde has been a lot of confusion, a lot of things that you've had to really reflect on. This full moon's giving you kind of that emotional charge to say like, yeah, you're starting to go down the right path. Now, as we do move forward on June 21st, we're going to have the sun enter Cancer and Cancer season begins. That's when the sun will go into the 11th house, and it's bringing more light, bringing more scope, bringing more understanding and focus and attention onto those 11th house things of networks, groups. This could also still be career implications. If you're using whole sign houses, maybe your midheaven's in the 11th house. However, this is just bringing more attention and focus there. But also on June 21st, Mercury is going to enter shadow, and this is going to be important because, as you should be aware of, when Mercury enters shadow, that's where it will station direct after its retrograde. And so whenever it enters shadow, whatever ends up happening usually on that day, you're going to have to come back to in a couple weeks. And so on June 21st, kind of pay attention if there's maybe miscommunications within that area for you of the 11th house of friendships and stuff like that. Maybe something got misaddressed or whatever. However, and I mean, I'll be talking a lot about that. I'll be doing a Mercury retrograde video, and I'll be talking a lot about that in July's horoscopes. However, as we move forward on June 26th, that's when we're going to have Mercury enter Leo, where it will station retrograde a little bit later on, and Mercury is going to be entering your 12th house. And this is where it gets a little bit weird. Mercury, of course, in Cancer is more focused on saying the things that we need to say and saying the things that are important and that matters. Mercury going into Leo is kind of like expressing passionately what our hearts feel. Like, what are we feeling? What are we expressing? What are we, what is that soul level, fire level energy? And as Mercury goes into your 12th house of hidden, repressed, unacknowledged parts of yourself, the subconscious, things you don't always see, Mercury going in here is kind of like, you may have some insights into some things that you're passionate about and that you feel and that you want to express that maybe you weren't aware of before. And as Mercury will station retrograde there, I don't want to say this is going to be problematic, but I think this is going to be something that takes quite a while to kind of go through. However, what I wanted to hit on with Mercury going into Leo is, don't be surprised if things kind of come up for you that you weren't necessarily prepared for or expecting, that you feel passionate about and that you want to express. Because as Mercury travels your 12th house, this is going to be a lot of mental understanding of hidden and repressed parts about yourself, helping you understand more about who you are. And to be honest with you guys, June's a pretty fucking rough month. June is pretty intense, but this is about focusing on the necessary and what needs to be addressed and, having the confidence and having the willpower to address those things. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you next month.